What's going on, everyone? Mike here with the Turntable Teachers, and class is officially back in session. And we are here for another Right Mind tutorial episode. And if you've been a fan of our show for a while, you've seen this man many times. This is his third Mixing Tips with Hex. This is his third episode with us through the actual Right Mind series. And Hex also has a guest speaker episode that's been out. And it's been a little while since we've done one of these, and you've been doing quite a bit. We'll talk about this maybe a little bit more stuff a little bit more in the next episode that you'll be coming on, which we'll keep hush hush for right now. But not gonna give too much away with that. But you've just recently relocated to Austin, Texas.
Yes,
which
sir.
Is pretty awesome. So congratulations on your move.
Thank you.
And before we started recording this, there was a little bit of we had some technical issues. I lost power. And so subsequently, somehow in me losing power and jumping back on, I am actually not the host of this Zoom meeting anymore. Somehow Hex has taken over the Turntable Teachers. So I had to ask permission to record and all that. So I'm on the other end. So this is your host now. I'm gone. I've resigned.
It's your host, Hex, back with another episode.
You gotta like practice your.
I know I'm not good at
routine.
that.
Yeah, you gotta practice your intro.
Exactly.
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. I'm doing good.
How's Austin treating you? Pretty good.
Perfect. Yep. As we were talking about, with the community here is great, and I'm feeling like I fit in here really well. So I think I found a home for now, for sure.
Great. We miss you here. You're still one of ours. Like
I know. I'm still technically a Massachusetts artist because most people I work with and like talk with is from Mass. So it's like
right. Exactly. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna, again, like I said, do another Right Mind tutorial. We're gonna break down some mixing and mastering tips. Obviously, there's two others as well. We'll link those in the description. But we have EQing vocals, and we also have reverb out already. So Hex is going to take us through another episode, and definitely excited. So without further ado, the floor is yours, host.
Cool. Yeah. So today, we're not going to do specifically like a super niche topic. Like technically, this episode was supposed to be compression. However, if I spent the whole time talking about compression, I feel like it would get really boring because compression's super technical and like it's really hard to show without having a trained ear. So I'm just kind of mush in the definition of compression and an explanation of that into basically just giving away my whole vocal chain for one of my unreleased songs, which is going to be the intro to my EP. So it's not even going to be a single. You're going to have to wait until the EP comes out to hear this in full. However, I will show how I mix my lead vocal on that one. So we can get that started right now. Let me just share my screen. So I'm going to play like just the first verse with the chorus, just to kind of get like the meat of what the vocal sounds like. And then I'll break everything down.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall. Looking back, I don't feel so bad. I could count on one hand how many friends I have. But void grows bigger with the fans I had. If I love what I do, why am I so fucking sad? Look, I get the message, but I still won't call back. It's my fault that I felt so down bad. I don't know what makes me different. I still feel like I don't fit in. But everybody wants to be like somebody. But what happens with somebody is you. Wow, I feel like nobody listens when they're around me. That's why I don't like listening to. Wow, I need some.
Word. So that's basically, you got the rapping, you got the singing, and they're both actually running through all the same plugins. So they're essentially the same thing. yeah, it's just I just kind of when I recorded them, the way I adjusted how far away I was. Rapping, I did a little more intimate right up in front. Singing, I did a little bit back, so it was more airy. That's really the only difference. So to start off, what I did, if I take all the plugins off and just solo the vocals. Let me see these plugins up here too. So this is just Autotune. I have Autotune like embedded in this. I would show you without Autotune, but I would have to like take everything off. So this is just Autotune and the actual clip gaining that I did, and I'll explain what clip gaining is in a sec.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall. Looking back, I don't feel so bad. I could count on one hand how many friends I...
So it feels like it kind of like gets a little lost in the beat. It's not like pushing out and right in your face. But it still sounds pretty decent for an extremely raw vocal. And the reason why it sounds kind of put together is something called clip gaining. So clip gaining is when you take a piece of audio and, I'll just use this since this is inactive as an example. So let's just say this word right here that I highlighted, I wanted to be louder or I want it to be quieter. I could cut it. And then Pro Tools actually makes it really easy. I've been using Pro Tools lately. You can do it in all software. However, on Pro Tools, it's as easy as having this little slider right here and raising and lowering the volume. And then you can just crossfade it like that with holding command and dragging. So what I did was right after I recorded, I would just throw on like some placeholder plugins to make it sound decent for a demo. But when I went into mixing, I would take all the plugins off and go in syllable by syllable and clip gain every single syllable so that it was all sounded even and smooth. So that's why if you see the waveforms for all these vocals, they look pretty consistent. They're not super jumpy up and down. So that technically in and itself controls most of the dynamics of the vocal. So everything else after that is really just a lot of cleanup stuff. So I'll just explain what it all is. So first thing is the Faraday limiter. So basically what it does is this threshold slider, I just pull it down to a point where if I did miss after doing clip gaining, if I did miss any peaks for the waveform, the limiter basically just makes it so that the signal can't go past that point. So any time it goes right there, it just basically pushes it right back down to where the ceiling is. And then these knobs right here, this color knob adds a little bit of saturation. So it just saturates the signal. It just adds in more frequencies and just makes it sound more dense. And then these two knobs, it's kind of hard to explain because they're really, it's like the concept of compression. Attack is basically how quickly it's pushing it down, and release is basically how fast it's going back to normal volume after it pushes it down. And then out is just the actual volume. So I turned it up a little bit so you'll hear.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall.
So like raises in volume. You can't really hear much. All that's doing is basically putting like a cap on the audio signal. The next thing is where most of the heavy lifting is, which is like we talked about before, EQ. So we had talked about dynamic EQ too in the last one, where like you can have it so only on the super loud parts in that frequency area it'll lower it, only when it's too loud. So I did that basically for every EQ move. So I did 2 filters on the top and bottom just to like focus in what frequencies were allowed in the vocal, and then the rest of it is just tone shaping. So I'll just solo each band so you can hear what's being taken out. So that's that super boxy sound. That's super honky. Right there. That's where it starts to get harsh. No, this was like a hollow frequency. And then these up here, my mic is actually really bright and brittle on the treble, so I have to do a lot of cutting for harshness and stuff like that. So you can hear it's like kind of sharp. So that's just the EQ. So I'll bypass that, and so you can hear without it, and then I'll turn it on.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall. Looking back, I don't feel so bad. I could count on one hand how many.
So that is doing a lot of heavy lifting for the actual tone of the vocal. Basically sounds so much thinner. So what I did was I thinned it out. So I took out all the bad shit. And then after, I did a lot of adding. But for right now, I'm still taking out for the next couple plugins, so I'll explain that. So this is an actual compressor. So basically, it's the same concept as the limiter, except instead of like being brick wall, this time constant affects the attack and release, kind of like what I explained from before, and it still lets some signal through, depending on how fast it's actually engaging and pushing down the peaks of the vocal. So it has a more glue sound to it than a limiter does. A limiter is more transparent than a compressor is. So I'll bypass it and then play it. I'm doing like 2 dB of compression, so not that much. I'm not trying to, squash it so the audio signal is just a brick. I still want a little bit of movement, peaks and valleys in my vocal, so it sounds natural.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall. Looking back, I don't feel so bad.
So it just sounds more consistent, even more glued together signal-wise. It's not jumping back and forth. And then the next one is a de-esser. So this is basically a compressor just for the S's. So I'll just solo the frequency that it's actually focusing on. So as you can hear, that's like where all the S's live. So I have it focused in there. And then basically whenever an S happens and it's too loud, it'll just duck down the S and smooth it out.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall.
You can see it right here when it engages.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
So it smooths that out. And then the next one is called the Spectral Shaper. So basically it's similar to de-esser, except it's not just for S's, it's for the whole vocal overall. So this whole area right here sounds super harsh, and that's actually the area where the human ear naturally has a big boost in volume. So us as humans, we hear that area in frequencies too loud usually, and it hurts our ears because it's so much louder than all the rest of the frequencies. So that's like a really important area to tame in your vocals and in your recordings, because the smoother it is and the more controlled it is, the smoother the vocal will sound to us humans. So
when there was nothing left,
as you can see, that the blue line right there engages when it's taking it out, and it'll show how much it's actually taking out.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall.
Just sounds a little bit smoother. The next one is a multiband compressor. So it's basically a compressor, except you solo each area. So it's very similar to the EQ, the dynamic EQ we were doing earlier, except with a dynamic EQ, it's less about an entire range and more about pinpointing a certain frequency or a very specific area. These are just literally from this point to this point is compressed this much, and then the rest of the areas are compressed in their own way. So I'll just solo each part.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
So that's the bass. I have a couple dB there.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
Compressing that.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
So I'm compressing those areas. Then I also have these areas.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
Those are just kind of extra bands that this plugin, it's called the C6 because it has 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 bands that you can drag around and get really specific with if they're poking out too much. So, that area at 622 hertz was too much, and then around 280.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
That was too much for me when I was mixing this. So this is without and then with.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall. Looking back, I don't feel so bad. I could count on one hand how many friends I have.
So it just sounds a little bit more cohesive and put together, and it kind of opens up more because I use those two bands on the end to take out those spots that were just like muffling the voice a little bit. And then from there, this is called Spectre. It's basically just an EQ that only boosts, but it doesn't just boost the frequency. It boosts the frequency while adding like a certain character of saturation. So, there's warm, which is just even order harmonics, which is a very confusing concept. That's just know that even order harmonics is more pleasing to the ear, or it's more just doubling down on what's already there. And odd order harmonics is kind of filling in gaps in the frequency spectrum. So basically this is on warm mode, and because I didn't want random frequencies to be added in to make it sound distorted, I want it to sound smooth. So I did a warm mode just to make it sound very smooth over the top. So I just boosted that 2 dB. So that added a little bit of body on the vocal, so it wasn't so thin and brittle. So I'll bypass it and then engage it.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall. Every stream of thought turns into rainfall. Never gave a damn, stress became a waterfall. Looking back, I don't...
And it adds a good bit of volume too because of how much body I'm adding. And then lastly, the Oxford Inflator. So this is, again, another saturation plugin. Basically, this is a tube saturator. So there's, in real life, in like old pieces of hardware, they would use tubes that literally, actually my mic is a tube mic, so it has a literal like glass tube in it, and it'll heat up and the sound will run through that. And certain types of tubes have certain types of characteristics. So this one's a tube saturator, so it has that tube character. And if you just push this, it'll again add those harmonics and will fill in the gaps in the frequency spectrum to make your sound more full. A lot of inexperienced mixers will, instead of using something like this, will add more compression, because essentially compression is bringing up the low volume, like what you squash down the high volume and then bring up the overall volume. So overall, the whole dynamic range of the song is getting squashed down, meaning that all of like the low volume frequencies are coming up. But with this, it's just adding them in based on what's already there instead of affecting the dynamic range. So it leaves in the loud parts, it leaves in the quiet parts and keeps them quiet, keeps them loud, so that the song is still flowing and moving and not just a complete brick that's squashed, So it sounds more musical and has more movement when you use saturation instead of compression.
The range just seems like it would be greater in that sense, right? Like in terms of you that's something you would want in a song.
Exactly. People talk about dynamic range in like photography and videography too. Like the super darks are dark, and then the light parts are light. So like when as humans, when we use our eyes and look at the video or look at the picture and we see that the blacks are really dark and the whites are really light, if it looks really good and crisp to us. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing with this, but the only thing is that there is such thing as being too dynamic.
Okay.
So like, because then it falls into the beat and it doesn't sound like consistent throughout the song.
Right.
So as long as it's consistent, at that point, when people add more compression to squish it even more, it's just for a character. But you can do the same exact thing with, this Spectre plugin, this inflator, and then you'll see up here I have other plugins that it's running through. This is a saturation plugin, again, warm tube mode right here. So I'm even saturating even more just to get that even more glued feel without affecting how loud the vocal is,
So yeah, so it just gives it really more contrast, right? Like
exactly.
the contrast that we want versus it being so flat and just sort of in this shorter like range. Like I hate to use the word range because that's the word, but like a shorter range essentially.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, I like the analogy that you're using with colors because
that's the best way to put it. For sure. Like you don't. It's hard when like everything, the whole song, there's just zero change in volume,
Right.
Like some songs you'll see like the if you look at the waveform, it literally just looks like a gigantic rectangle. And like that's when it's usually not a great sounding record. It might be a good song, just the potential probably wasn't pushed as much as it could have been because of the fact that you know, we naturally enjoy dynamics as long as it's done right. You know, like we still want that character, that punch, that, you know, saturated sound, but this is the way you do it in the way without ruining the dynamics, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So yeah, and then I have this EQ.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
Just doing just tiny, literally like 0.93 dB. It's like barely noticeable. It's just basically for my sanity there. Again, another Oxford inflator. This time I'm pushing it 100%, but this curve knob is this slider is basically like how subtle it is. So the lower it is, the more subtle it is. So I pulled it down so it was more subtle, and then I would like push it because I wanted the vocals to, again, be super upfront and saturated without losing that. And then I have this plugin called Soothe. So basically what it's doing is it's finding the harsh frequencies in these areas, basically throughout the whole thing, but I pinpointed these areas so it's like more, it's less, it does more taking out in those areas. And it basically just automatically will clean it up for you. It'll clean up those harsh frequencies. It's basically like a magic plugin that a lot of professional engineers use, and they still are like, I don't even know what it's doing. Which some engineers don't like. They like to know what the plugin's doing. However, it's very helpful. I'll actually show you what it's taking out.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep.
So that's with it, and this is without it.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run.
Again with it.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run.
So you can see it's very subtle. And then if I put on delta, it'll actually flip it so it only plays what's being taken out.
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all. I always run to the cliff's edge and hit a wall.
So it's basically everything you're hearing is just sounds like butt, and like you just don't, it's usually those frequencies that you don't like in a vocal. So it's just automatically taking them out. However, I have the mix, which is like the blend between the original signal and the new affected signal at 40%. So it's only, the affected signal is only 40% of the whole signal. So I'm leaving in some of that original signal just so I'm not taking everything out, you know?
When there was nothing left, wanted to keep it all.
Yep. So that's basically the end of that vocal. And then some other things I did to just make the song dance more was, let me just see what parts right here. So I have the reverb muted for the whole rap part. So if I play it.
Love what I do, why am I so fucking sad? Look, I get the message, but I still won't call back. It's my fault that I felt so down bad. I don't know what makes me different. I still feel like I don't fit in. But everybody wants to be like somebody, but what?
So when the singing comes in, I have all that spaciness, those delays being like thrown in the background, like tons of atmospheric stuff going on. And I have it automated so that it engages right at that part, because that's when you're like kind of brought into a new space in the song, and I wanted that feel, you know? So I have it going, next verse, same exact thing. And then when I start singing again, and then another cool thing I did was this part right here where the other voice comes in, like that dark voice. You guys didn't hear it. I showed Mike before the episode the whole song. So this is kind of a sneak peek of later in the song. So I did this. So basically what I did was I took this part right here. Oops, sorry. And I printed the reverb. So we explained in the other episode that you use send for a reverb. So it's basically just a copy of the lead vocal, and then you just turn it into a full reverb signal and then blend that back in with the regular dry vocal. But for this, I actually printed it out. So this audio right here is literally just reverb and delay. And then because of the fact that I wanted to actually go in on the audio clip and put a fade. and I wanted to fade it out right here. And it was much easier to manipulate the fades on those versus trying to draw it in with automation like I did up here with these lines that you see right here. Just makes it easier for me, and like that way I can manipulate them more. And I added in EQ and stuff.
Oh, my fault. I was just gonna ask, is that how you got like those really dark tones in the vocal? Like,
oh, so that is this plugin. You mean like the pitch effect?
Yeah.
So that plugin is Little Alter Boy. So basically, let me just. Yeah.
Some of the names of these plugins crack me up.
Yeah.
Like Soothe made a ton of sense for me, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
That like Soothe. I think I'm almost cut you off on my point, but like I was like, it just blurred. I was like, oh, that's like Soothes the vocal. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
To be like Little Alter Boy is funny though. That's sounds like the exact opposite of what I think it was.
Yeah. This is it without it. Oh, you know why? Is because I have it frozen. Let me unfreeze this real quick. This plugin's really interesting, like this concept of pitching the formant. So there's pitch and formant. So pitch is the actual note that it's hitting, and you don't want to adjust that because then it would be out of key. Mm-hmm. It would be hitting the wrong notes, and you want to keep the good notes that you're hitting, but you want it to just sound lower or higher in tone. So that's the formant. So that's basically like how tight and how wide your throat is. So depending on the size of your throat, that determines if you have a low or high voice. So basically this is what it sounds like with a normal formant. Somebody wants to be like somebody, but what happens when somebody is you? Just like my other pre-hooks in the song. But I added this filter so it sounded more telephony. And then I did a pitch shift down by 6.4 cents. And it basically just makes it, Somebody wants to be like somebody, but what happens when somebody is you? See what I mean? It's pretty cool.
Now the other way, it definitely sounds like Little Alter Boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just here for comedic relief.
Facts. Yeah, we need it, man.
In all seriousness, but it's interesting though, like going through this because I've always been enamored with artists that do that type of pitch. Like pitch shifting, pitch control.
Yeah, it's a really
like,
cool concept.
For example, like A$AP Rocky and guys like Denzel Curry. Like I feel like they've done a lot of that over the years, and it's always like, Brockhampton's another group. Like they've all done it, and it's like for me, I'm like, how do they? I've always asked myself, like, how does that work? So
yeah, it's most of it isn't even the engineer either. So like how usually people don't understand this. I mean, I didn't even really understand it till recently until I started watching podcasts of like, mixers and producers that are like high end with like the best of the best, and like it starts with the idea where with a producer and a writer coming together, whether that writer is the artist or someone else writing a song for an artist. The writer and the producer come together, they write the song together, and then that artist sings on the song and actually cuts the vocal with either the producer or a recording engineer. So usually some producers are both recording engineers and producers. Some of the jobs are split just depending on what you are and what your specialty is. And the recording engineer will put it through their chain and get a really good demo going so that it's to the point of it's almost there. It just needs that extra 10-15%. So like those effects that you hear, like the pitch effects and all that stuff, is usually done with the recording engineer / producer and the artist, and the mixing engineer is just doing the EQ, compression, and leveling, just the technical stuff to really make sure that it competes, with sonic quality. So a lot of the stuff I do in my own songs is more vocal production versus mixing, like those types of things, and like automating the reverbs and delays to come in and out. Like the artist and producer would most likely have that already down pat. For a more professional environment, but us independent artists, we don't have the luxury to pay a producer, pay a recording engineer, pay a mixing engineer, and then pay a mastering engineer. It's like usually the fact that you're probably even watching this right now is because you want to learn to do it on your own, or just learn in general. So most likely you're not going to be the guy who only wears one hat. You're going to be wearing multiple hats. So that's why it's good to know these vocal production tips too.
Really great.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The background vocals,
Fantastic.
as you can see, it has basically a very similar chain. This plugin right here, Decapitator, is just another saturation plugin. It's more, saturation is the same as distortion. It's just distortion is just the extreme version of it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Decapitator decapitates the signal, so it like distorts it if you push it really hard. You could also get some subtle results out of it too, but that's basically the only difference. Like Saturn, we already said that I had added that to my lead vocals. Yeah, VMR is probably just compression. That's pretty much it. That's it for the lead vocal, at least, for sure.
Fantastic.
So, yep.
I love it. Really great.
Thank you.
So yeah, there's your vocal change. That's really sweet, and the song is incredible, guys. So definitely make sure that you tune in and make sure you tune in for this song and this EP to drop, because as I mentioned, a little spoiler alert. If you've made it this far, you can get a little Easter egg, if you will.
Yeah.
But Hex is going to be coming back when his EP drops. Do you have a date yet, or like a
I'm thinking June 4th. June 4th. However,
okay.
I think my next single is going to drop the 28th of May. So I don't know if that would be too close together, or maybe it'll be right on time for the hype train. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I'm going to figure it out. It's, if not June 4th, then the week after. So for sure, it's going to be early June.
Early to mid-June.
Yeah.
Well, once the EP drops, we will be having an album analysis episode.
Absolutely.
So you will be wearing a different hat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah, you're gonna be putting your analytical hat on with your boy.
Yeah.
With someone that actually knows what they're talking about in that.
Yeah.
I was just a listener taking this all in tonight. But that was my role today, which is totally fine. But this was really great, man. Thank you for doing this and showing anybody who's listening to this and watching this, I should say, how to do these things. I think it's really great that that you're just sharing the knowledge, right? And I think that's awesome. I mean, it's that part of it, I think I very much commend you for, and we appreciate it. And I think you're going to be helping some people that really like.
It's a huge part, I learned from watching podcasts of like people who make like 4K per song mixing.
Yeah,
so if they're gonna share their secrets, even though it's not even secrets, it's just knowledge.
Yeah.
If they're gonna teach how to do it, then I'm clearly not at their level yet. So why wouldn't I do the same thing to people who might not be at my level yet for mixing, or are at the same level as me and just want to hear what I do, versus them. So that's the cool part of it. I love hearing about other people's chains and stuff like that. So that's why I love sharing mine. It's because I'm interested to see how people take it all in. So. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. I was seeing one of your TikToks from a while back, and how many people were commenting on, "Oh my God, this is so cool to see your vocal chain," and things like that. I was just, and some people were like, "Oh, I don't do it like this. I do it like this instead." And I'm like, "Yeah, this isn't the way to do it." There's about a million. If I handed this to 10 different engineers, not one of them would have the same chain on it. So. But that's a cool part of it, though, because it's you can take some of the advice, but also you kind of put your own spin on it at the same time. I never take everything. See what works for you. So I never take everything 100%. I'll be I love everything about what they told me. I just like to do this instead in these certain situations. So I'll just manipulate. That's what makes you you. You take all your inspirations and combine them into this one super inspiration, which is just ends up being your sound. Exactly. So that's the coolest part. Fair enough. I love that. Really great, man. So once again, Hex here with another Mixing Tips with Hex episode. This is episode 3. We did vocal chains tonight. And of course, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, if this, was helpful for you in any way, we have 2 others if you haven't checked them out, EQing vocals and reverb. So make sure you, head over to those. They're linked in the description. And also make sure you tune in to more of our Beats with episodes. We just had B-Leafs come on for 2. We have our or 2. He did 1 beat, but split it up into 2 episodes, and we have at least 2 more producers coming on for those, and we won't quite give those away yet, but coming very soon. And a big announcement again, another Easter egg for you. If you have made it this far,
we have a huge announcement coming very soon with our Beats With series, and I'm so excited to launch that. And actually, our good friend Hex here will be, or affiliate, I should say. Not you're a friend of the show, but you're an affiliate as well. You were part of the team. I at least that's how I see it.
Yes.
He will have a huge hand in that as well. So that announcement's coming sooner rather than later. So make sure you guys tune back in for that. And of course, go listen to Wait, the new single with Cronin. It is out now. Should have plugged that at the beginning of the episode, but we're here now. So
it's fine, whatever. And
a great article that, not to scratch my pat myself on the back, but there's an awesome article as well that I wrote. So if you like the
perfect breakdown,
thank you, man. I appreciate it. Again, we all have our talents, we all have our skills, but if you like that song, definitely check out the article. Link that in the description too, and be on the lookout for an album analysis episode with Hex coming really soon. And once again, man, thank you so much for doing this and being here. Like, this is, I always it goes over, a lot of it goes over my head, but the stuff that I can actually, because I'm not doing like, but what I can pull from it tends to make sense, because I feel like if someone actually knows the terminology and understands it, they'll be able to kind of stay with you. So I really,
it takes practice.
Really, we appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of people out there appreciate this as well.
For sure.
So thank you as always. And without further ado, I'm Mike. This is Hex with the Turntable Teachers, and class is officially dismissed.